Hey, it's Craig Syracuse, and welcome to another episode of Walk in Faith, the show where we go beyond the image and we discover who our guests really are. You might know them from TV, the big screen, or even the world of sports, but do we really know who they are as a person? Do we know what motivates them? Do we know what inspires them? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
A few months ago, I visited the Sight and Sound Theater in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I had the chance to talk to Katie Miller and Matt Neff about the mission of the theater, as well as the new biblical play, Jesus. Katie, together with Dean Sell, are back with me today to talk about another great play, Moses, and how you'll soon be able to catch it in a theater near you.
Coming to select cinemas nationwide for 3 days only.
You are going to become someone very important someday, Moses.
You don't know who I am. No, you don't know who you are. Moses.
Well, thank you so much for coming to New York, Katie. It's a pleasure to see you, Dean. It's great to meet you.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, a huge fan of Sight and Sound. It was the next week I came back there. I had such an experience after seeing Jesus and just meeting everyone that worked at Sight and Sound that I said to my wife, we have to go back. So, Katie, I had the opportunity to meet your grandfather quickly, and what a nice man. What a great man. Can you just tell me a little bit about how he started, how he came up with this idea of Sight and Sound, and if he ever thought it would be where it is today? Like, what is his reaction when to hear that it's in movie theaters now across the country?
Yeah, I mean, yes, his reaction to movie theaters around the country is one, I think, of just as much surprise as any of us, because growing up on a farm, I don't think he ever imagined that something like this would happen with him. But at the core of who he really is an entrepreneur. He has that entrepreneurial spirit. Grew up on a farm, through a set of tragedies, lost the family farm, was a newlywed, starting a family, and found himself needing to make ends meet. And so he began to rely on his creativity to do that. And he was doing everything from, peddling paintings out of the back of his car to taking photography throughout the community. He started to produce some multimedia shows that he was showing in churches and different civic organizations, things like that. And finally got a little bit tired of the traveling. You know, they had 2 young daughters at the time and were trying to figure out what they were going to do. And so he saved enough money through running a multimedia show at a local Bible college for a summer to be able to buy a plot of land and open our first theater. And so he did that in the early 70s. And from there, they started out just doing the multimedia production, and they started adding different elements in, and eventually kind of moved more towards biblical productions and came where we are today, which is hard to imagine over 42 years, but it's remarkable. And I think one of the things that is the most exciting with where we are headed with Moses in movie theaters right now is knowing that we started with the multimedia, and now to see the shows kind of come full circle onto the big screen is something that's a little overwhelming for all of us.
And you said it, but I think we should give him more credit. There was a time where I think it was the first theater burnt down, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me that, you and your grandma, him and his wife or your grandmother,
Yeah.
that was the opportunity where he could have said, is this really what God wants for my life? And he could have gave up and everyone would have said, you know what? Len, it's fine. But instead he didn't, right? He really dug deep inside and God gave him the ability to move forward and to see what, God had in store was this amazing. I mean, you're on 40 acres of property, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't just a little theater. I mean, this is a huge, it's tremendous.
Yeah, and we often talk about that. We call it the kitchen conversation right after the fire. It was only a few days later. And, they were in their 50s and just kind of taking a step back going, oh my goodness, do we want to start all over? Because we had lost everything at that point in time. And, my grandfather, my grandparents, they joke that my grandpa is the pedal and my grandma's the brake. Their personalities are about as polar opposite as they can possibly be. But for one of the first times, he sat back and he just looked at her and he said, what do you want to do? Like, I'm tired, but what do you want to do? And she said, Glenn, I don't think I could live with myself another day if we didn't come back, because this is more than just what we do. It's what we're called to do. It's who we are. And so it was that moment in the kitchen, sitting at the table, I think it was like 3 days after the fire, where they said, okay, then we're going to do everything we know to do to come back. And, the Lord used that whole season to, I think, set Sight and Sound up for all that it is today, because that original theater was significantly smaller than what we have right now. It was on the same plot of land, but much smaller. And so just to be able to see how the Lord truly did bring a lot of beauty from ashes has been a really special journey for our whole family, and I think our entire organization in many ways.
I agree. I think it's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And can you just let us know a little bit about where it is today?
Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
All right. We are known for bringing the Bible to life in a spectacular way. So we do Bible stories on stage in our 2 locations in Lancaster, Pennsylvania and Branson, Missouri.
Yeah, a lot of people probably haven't heard about Sight and Sound because, we're only in those 2 locations, but we're really excited about being able to take our shows beyond the stage into movie theaters this week. It's only the second time that we've done it, to be able to help people understand really what this unique Sight and Sound experience is.
And the first one, now the one we're speaking about is Moses, right? Before that, was it Jonah? Jonah was the first one?
Jonah was the first that we took to 600 movie theaters last year.
Wow.
And so we were so just overcome with the response, and a great partnership with Fathom Events. And so we said, hey, let's do it again. And what's the next best title to bring to the screens? And so Moses rose to the top.
Wow. And Moses, like I said, I watched the DVD. It was phenomenal. And I kept saying, I want to see this. Because watching on a computer screen, it's a little bit different from seeing it in the theater or seeing it live. Now, how long does a play like Moses take from, say, the conception of it to the actual first performance, and now in theaters? How long is that process?
Sure. The whole production process is about 3.5 years from the time our writing team, our story department comes together to begin doing their research, script writing, and then starting to work with our designers and show construction teams to really get the show all the way up to rehearsal time when it comes to life on the stage with our cast and crew. So about a 3.5 year process.
3.5 years. And you have some interesting facts. I was reading, it's like, 4.1 miles of cable, 12,000 buttons. What is some, and now one thing is, especially when you're creating plays, right? Like, how accurate is it? Do you have to sort of, alter the story in order to fit, into a play? I know Jesus, it was fit into 2 hours, or to put into movie theaters. Do you have to, how accurate is it to say the Bible?
We stopped counting the buttons a long time ago. Yeah, we try as best as we can to stay true to the scriptures. But as you said, Moses is a massive story. And so if we told every event, it would probably be an 8-hour epic on screen. And we didn't think that people would want to come and sit in a movie theater for that long. So we want to make sure that it's entertaining, that it's suitable for families to enjoy together, but also stay true to scripture.
Mm. I know when I was watching it, I noticed it went from like he was a kid to all of a sudden he was a little bit older, and then it was amazing. One thing too was when I was watching the play, there were a few things that came to mind. One of the scenes that I loved was, and I wanted to just get your opinion on when he said to the Pharaoh, he sort of denounced his relationship with him, and he said, I'm going to leave my family to go follow what God has sort of placed in my heart, what he knew was true. And I think about that, and I was like, I want to get your opinion. Do you think you're brave enough to follow in Moses' footsteps, to say, I know this isn't right, and I want to follow what God has placed in my heart? Do you ever think about that for me?
I would hope that I would be able to say yes, but I think really at the heart of why we do what we do, Craig, is that, a lot of us can read these stories in scripture, we hear about them in church, and they become very familiar, but really what we want to do is breathe fresh life into them. How can we help people see them differently and walk away feeling inspired enough to say yes to God?
Yeah, and also realizing that these Bible characters that I think we so often put on this really high pedestal of these people that never did anything wrong. They were perfect. They were used by God. But when you really start to look into their stories and realize how many times they were in need of second chances, that they were in need of forgiveness, of starting over, it brings them down to what they were, human, just like the rest of us, and able to identify with them on a little bit more of a personal level throughout these stories.
I think you're completely right. And one of the lines I thought of when I was watching that was, Jesus walked with sinners. And Moses is afraid to say, how could God love me? I'm a sinner. He couldn't love me. And then he realizes that, first of all, he uses the fact that he stutters, right? He used that to his advantage. He used all of his flaws to show that Jesus will always love you. He'll always forgive you. I mean, there were so many great points in that play, and the acting was phenomenal. In terms of casting, how do you go about casting some of these?
Yeah, I mean, we
lead roles?
hold auditions throughout the whole nation. We go to a lot of theater conferences. We hold them at our 2 locations, and then right here in New York City, we hold auditions every year. So we just held auditions for our upcoming season next year. And so our cast is really comprised of people from all over the nation who are really excited to partner with us in bringing these stories to life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, tell me about the filming. I mean, because we spoke about it a little off camera. Tell me about the production. I mean, how long does it take? Is it usually filmed? Is it one play, or do you do multiple plays? How many cameras? Can you tell me a little about that?
Well, there's nothing small that happens at Sight and Sound. And so we started filming the shows 10 years ago. And so we really learned a lot about how to do this. But we learned even more last year when we saw Jonah on the big screen. We said, hey, how can we get even better at doing this? So we bring in a production crew of about 8 cameras. We spend 4 days filming the show anywhere between 4 to 8 times. And we do it in front of a live audience because we want people that are seeing it on screen to feel like they're sitting there in the audience with the audience members. And then we spend months and months combing through all of that footage, trying to get the best takes, the best delivery lines, the best camera moves, and hopefully what we have is a product that people are just going to fall in love with.
Wow. How big are the sets? I mean, I've been there. I did the tour, which I thank you for that. And to see it and to see how big some of these set pieces, and you use, I think it was 3D printer to sort of print out some of these set pieces. Tell me about it. I mean, what makes it so unique?
Right. Well, we're known for our immersive experience. When you're in the audience, you really feel like you're a part of the show. So the stage is a 300-foot wraparound stage. It's on 100 feet on either side and 100 feet across in front of the audience. And yeah, I mean, our sets are typically 3 stories high, so they're 30 feet, and we have animals and actors that use the aisles, and fly rigs overhead, all sorts of things fly over top of the audience's head. One of the things that makes the movie experience so unique is, you know, when you're sitting in the theater, the live theater with 2,000 people around you, it is massive and it's huge and you're in the middle of it, but sometimes it's hard to capture some of the little nuanced things that happen, the emotion of the actors and the detailing in the costumes. And that is one thing that the movie experience has that is so unique to it, because the cameras are able to get up close and personal and capture those angles that you might miss when you're sitting in the live theater. So it's a unique experience in and of itself, but we're able, I think we do a pretty good job of capturing the spectacular nature of what it is too.
I agree.
Well, and the set pieces have to be so big because the theater is so big.
Yeah, right.
And so if we made normal sized set pieces, they would look like dollhouses on stage, you know. So there are mountains that are in this show, literally mountains that are moving on stage. You know, there's Pharaoh's throne and there's the courtroom. And so, you know, we believe that if we make an experience that is larger than life, realistic, that people will begin to feel like they're actually sitting inside of Egypt, you know, that they're sitting inside of these Bible stories.
When I went there, I was telling you last time, there was a woman next to me, and I take notes a lot. And I was taking notes for the interview, and she was, oh, no, it's no problem. You're not going to distract me. I've seen this like 3 times. And she was surprised that I've never seen the play. But what I loved about it was, like, wherever my focus was, if I was focusing on, say, the left side or the right, there was so much going on that you could see that play 4 or 5 times and still miss something. For someone that, say, has seen the play, why would they, say, want to go see it at Fathom or go see it in a movie theater? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, these shows are designed to be a shared experience. And so you could watch it at home, but as you said, there's so many things that are on the stage and in the story that you just don't see the first time. And so our hope is that people want to be surrounded by dozens, hundreds of people watching and experiencing the show together. So not just in their local movie theater, but the 700 plus movie theaters all across the country watching it together.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, we know too, like, it's not practical for everyone to come to Lancaster or Branson. So if for those that aren't able to come to our location or bring everybody they want to our location, it's a way to have a sight and sound experience right in your own backyard.
Sight and Sound Theaters invites you to a special event coming to select cinemas nationwide for 3 days only.
You are going to become someone very important someday, Moses.
You don't know who I am. No, you don't know who you are.
Moses, deliver my people out of bondage and into the land of promise.
An epic Bible story adventure for the whole family, seen by nearly 2 million people.
I have turned my back on all of the riches of Egypt. Who is this God that I should listen to him? Let my people go!
Moses, I will stretch out my hand and perform mighty miracles.
Prepare for a journey out of Egypt on a quest to reach the Promised Land in this original stage production, filmed in front of a live audience.
God is watching over you, Moses!
Prepare for battle. I want soldiers, horses, chariots. Deliver us!
Moses, in movie theaters for 3 days only. Visit mosesevent.com for a location near you.
When you first saw Jesus or you saw Moses, what is the one thing that stood out for you? What would you say?
The most memorable Sight and Sound experiences that I have are honestly being able to watch the shows with my kids. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kiddos, 8, 7, and 3. And honestly, it's fun to be in the theater watching their expressions as the stories are coming to life. But the most fun is watching them reenacted at home the next day. You know, that's when you know it actually worked, when they're inspired enough to bring the Bible stories to life themselves.
And I love too at the end, I think it was, I forgot we spoke about this, but you give the opportunity for people to come up and speak to people that work there and sort of give their life to Christ. Like, you don't see that. We're in Manhattan right now. You're not going to see that at Mary Poppins or any other shows. Where they actually, you know, where people that work there, first of all, the people that work in your organization, they're all there for the same reason. They're all on some sort of journey, the mission. But you give them the opportunity to come up. So it's not just a play. It's not just a show. It's a lot more than that. Like, you live the mission of the company. I mean, to see that and to experience that, it was beautiful. I mean, now, when does this take place? When is the first screening? What is this week, next week?
Yeah, it's this week. So the 3 dates are Thursday, September 13th, Saturday, September 15th, and the third one is Thursday, September 20th. And you can get tickets on mosesevent.com.
Mosesevents.com.
Yeah.
Now, also, if someone can't make it, is this going to happen again? Do you have other shows in the works?
We hope so, yeah. We are filming the show that's on the Lancaster stage right now called Jesus. So we're spending the whole week this week capturing every single angle that we possibly can of that show. And so really excited. We don't have a date yet for when that's going to be coming out, but we brought Jonah to movies last year, bringing Moses this year, and so our hope is that it's something that we can do every single year.
And do you see this Sight and Sound is going to move in this direction? Like, what's in the future for Sight and Sound?
It's a great question. It's a question that we're asking ourselves a lot these days. You know, we have 2 theater locations. We've got Lancaster, we have Branson. But the reality is there's a limited amount of people that we can house in those 2 theaters. We can only run so many shows a week. And so we've been asking ourselves, is this it? You know, have we fulfilled the mission that we believe God has given us for Sight and Sound? And we keep coming back to, no, we don't believe so. And so Fathom events and taking our shows into movie theaters is one step. Jonah from the movie theaters is actually now on Hulu. It's on iTunes and Amazon. And so we see that as a second step. But where we go from there, we're not sure yet, but we're incredibly excited and just taking one step at a time and seeing where God leads us.
That's great. And how do you come up with these ideas? Like, how does what's the next play that you guys are sort of conceiving? Like, does that fall under your auspices? I mean, there's so many, amazing stories in the Bible. It's like, how do you decide on the next story or the next play?
Yeah. Aside from the people we hire, I think one of the most critical decisions that we make is what show we're going to do next. And we have a whole team of people that come together and, spend a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time in discussion, kind of narrowing down what the options are. And then also just working with our team of writers to say, what's God putting on your hearts? What are you passionate about, excited about? Because that's a really, they're going to be living, breathing this show for years and years on end. So we want them to have a passion for it. And some stories just lend themselves, a little bit more. We joke all the time. Our CFO used to joke all the time that he's, really passionate about us doing a show in the Book of Numbers.
What? Numbers
the musical was his phrase. But so some stories naturally lend themselves to being put on stage a little bit more than others. But it is a really, it's a very prayerful process that we follow to see what stories the Lord has for us to tell next.
What do you think is going to be next? And can you?
Well, it takes so long that we have to start these stories years ago. So we've got 2 shows that are in production right now. One show that's going to debut on the Lancaster stage in 2020, which we'll be announcing this fall. Mm-hmm. So it's been in production for about 2 years already. And so set pieces are on the shop floor. They're in construction, but we haven't announced it yet. That's coming in November. And then we started production this month on the show that's going to premiere in 2022.
Wow.
So beginning stages of that one. Yeah.
That's a great way to have job security, right?
That's right.
Projects. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'll be here for the next 5 years. How does it work now? Because I know, can you explain? So you do Lancaster, then it goes to Branson. Like, what's that process like?
Yeah, all of the shows are designed to be what we call modular. So they're designed to debut on the Lancaster stage and then break apart and pack into tractor trailer trucks and be shipped to Branson, reassemble, and then run on the Branson stage as well. So it takes about 55 tractor trailer loads of set pieces and costumes and props, sometimes animals, to get from Lancaster to Branson.
Yeah, that was one of the things we spoke about too, the animals. When the animals were running down the aisle, and I was like, oh my God, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And then people that, for instance, like we said earlier, they're not familiar with Sight and Sound, and they're like, I have Broadway's right here, I can go see a show. What are some of the unique sort of, not even the props, but some of the technology and sort of, you do state-of-the-art equipment. You have, 12 or 13 projectors you use in Moses, right?
Yeah, technology is a big part, and has always been a big part of what Sight and Sound is actually birthed in technology. One of the first Sight and Sound shows that was put out into the world over 40 years ago was a multimedia show using multiple projectors that were strung together, and it was state-of-the-art back in the 70s and 80s. But it's important for us just to remind ourselves that we're not doing it just to utilize technology. It's really a tool just for us to help people feel closer and closer to the stories. But we get to do a lot of fun things. There's a piece of technology that's used in the show Moses that's controlling the set pieces on stage so that they can move in sync with the music in perfect timing so that the audience is seeing that burning bush come into view at the very same time that Moses is discovering it. And it's multiple pieces of technology strung together, some that the military pioneered to help vehicles drive autonomously by themselves. There's a local GPS system inside the theater that has beacons that are communicating to the set pieces that are being controlled by a computer.
Oh my
so
God.
It's exciting stuff, especially if you're kind of a gear geekhead, but we love it, but it's just not what drives us. It's really a means to an end.
Wow. And what is the one thing you would say you hope people walk away with after seeing this play?
That the same stories that were relevant thousands and thousands of years ago when the Bible was written are still relevant and real and alive today. The Bible is still the best-selling book of all time. Its stories are ones that we are, they're timeless, that many of us have been familiar with them from childhood on up. But hopefully they walk away. Guests that go and see these stories, either in movie theaters or come to visit us in one of our locations, that they walk away inspired to go and continue to search the scriptures for themselves.
I agree. Well,
Yeah.
if you can give us the website and the information one more time, and I'm going to tell our viewers to make sure they go see the play and Lancaster or Branson, and also to see it this week and next week at Fathom.
Yeah.
And the website you said was?
MosesEvent.com.
Please, I hope everybody take a trip out to Lancaster, because like I said, it changed my life. And I thank you for that.
Yeah.
God bless you
Thanks
guys.
for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. And always remember, we have the ability to inspire and evangelize through our words and actions. Till next time, thanks for walking with us.